welcome to another lawnfawn video. Today we are introducing the brand new stamp set Bean Me Up and its coordinating dies. So let's go ahead and check it out. This set is full of cute aliens. We have them in a bunch of different styles, and in some of those styles we even have them in a large size and then a small size, and I love this guy there. And then we have a cool little spaceship, and we have a larger spaceship as well. We have some beams to come down from that spaceship, and then we have a little cake and a present for really cute birthday cards. We also have these little kind of beam rays that are really cool, and they'd be awesome in glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. That'd be so cool. And then here you can see a little shorter one so that you can kind of do a ray design coming out. You can also put those designs inside the beam too, and that looks really cool. We have this fun little flag and then all these little icons that you can stamp inside the flag. So we have a little planet. We also have a smiley face. We have a star. And we have a heart. We also have some really fun sentiments. So we have an out of this world birthday. We have happy birthday. We have believe in yourself. We also have take us to your cake in little parentheses, which is so cute. Beam up some fun. To my favorite earthling, which might be my favorite one, and you're a star. We also have an exclamation point you can add to the ends of these phrases. I'm using my Copic markers today to add some color into these cute little aliens, and I decided to color them in kind of a rainbow pattern. What's really fun about the aliens is you can color them whatever you want because we don't know what aliens look like. So in this one, I did that traditional kind of green alien, but then I thought it would be fun to go from there and kind of do this rainbow order. So I would have either an alien or a ship in, kind of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So it was a really fun way to help me decide on the colors of my little aliens, and I just love the whole rainbow thing. It's just so much fun. Here I'm using my favorite markers, which are BG13 and BG11, because I love turquoise, but these markers are really far apart from each other. So to help me blend them, what I like to do is touch my light marker to my dark marker to create a medium shade to help me blend those together. And you can see how much nicer that looks now. I'm really starting to love this combination of orange. It's sort of like a neon orange, which is really, really fun. And these are my favorite yellows. So you'll see I'm adding kind of some dark areas and then blending out into the light towards the center so that it gives it kind of a bulbous shape. Now here I'm going to take out some really, really fun blues to kind of add to my rainbow, right? I was missing my true blue here. And so I'm going to blend those out the same way I did in the other spaceship, keeping that light area towards the center, and you can see that really gives it kind of a nice round shape. Now for my little accessories here, I'm going to use all of the colors that I used before. So I'm using the same turquoise, purple, blue, etc. That way I'm just using the same markers that I already had out, and then everything's going to coordinate really well. I love BG10 and BG70 for things like glass or eyes. I think it just gives that really cool appearance. And then for this beam here, I'm going to use some really nice pale yellows, keeping it darker towards the top and then lighter towards the bottom. And I think it really makes it look like those kind of beam rays. I'll add a little more color there to my flag, and now it's time to work with the coordinating die. So you can bend these apart at the tabs or use your wire snips to separate them. I'm going to take them and line them up with my stamped images and then hold them in place with some low tack tape and run them through my die cut machine. And this is going to give me a perfectly cut cute little alien which can be ready to put on a card. And then here you can see all of my die cut images and also that kind of cool rainbow order that we have going on with these guys. And this is how you can kind of mix and match these different things. You can have the alien hold the flag, you can give them party hats, you can have the beam come down from the spaceship. And then the coolest thing ever is this little extra die that's included in the coordinating dies is to cut a window into your spaceship. So you can either have the spaceship without a window, or you can line that die up, run it through your die cut machine, and now you get this cool window opening. And so we'll be using the spaceship in both ways today, with the window and without, but you can see how cute that is with the little alien in the spaceship. One of the things that I love about this stamp set is how well it goes with Out of This World. So I went ahead and stamped and colored some of the planets from that set. And then I'm going to use my white gel pen to just add a little detail to these guys. I'm going to do little curved lines around their edges, and it kind of makes them look more cartoony and also kind of shiny, and I think it's a really, really cute look. I used the coordinating dies to cut those out, and then I decided to stamp some of these little beam lines into the main beam, so it kind of adds a little extra detail to that area. And then here you can see all of my little die cut pieces ready to go. So next I'm going to use the snowy backdrop die here, and I'm going to die cut some blue Jay cardstock, and this is going to become my night sky for this scene. Then I'm taking my really rainbow paper pack here, and I'm going to find the rainbow gradient paper. So there it is, and I've cut it down to 5.5 by 4.25, and when you put it behind that die, it looks like this really cool rainbow sky. So I'm using my glue tube to add a little glue to the back of this die cut, and then I'll layer that on top for this really, really awesome rainbow look. Next, I'm using the Cloudy Hillside pop-up add-on, and I'm going to die cut those from white cardstock, but instead of using them with the pop-up, we're actually going to use them to decorate the front of the card. So I'm going to layer the smaller one there on the base there with some tape runner, and then the larger one, I'm going to make some little tick marks so that I know where to trim it, so that it kind of looks perfect with that other one layered behind it. So I'll trim off those pieces and then add some foam tape to it and layer that on top for some really cool dimensions so that it looks like our aliens are in the clouds. I'm going to die cut the new speech bubble die from some white cardstock, and that's where we're going to put our sentiment. But first up, I need to put everything down in its final placement. So I'm using foam dots for some pieces and then using tape runner for others to kind of give some cool dimension. Then I'm going to stamp the happy birthday, take us to your cake sentiment on that little speech bubble, and I'm going to layer that right on top of the card. Next, it's time for our card base, which we're going to make out of blue Jay cardstock to match, and then we can layer all of our pieces together. And I wanted to say a big thank you to Audrey for letting me recreate her card for the video. It is just so cute and so much fun with those rainbow stars in the background. For the next card, we're going to be using the new peekaboo backdrop, and I'm going to die cut that from some black licorice cardstock. Then I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock that's the same size, which is 5.5 by 4.25, and I'm going to do some ink blending. So I'm going to start off of the paper and then move on, slowly building up that color. So I'll start off and then move on, then I'll tap my little ink pad back into my ink and then start off and move on. And I'm going to repeat that with all 4 of my colors. When I move on to my next color, what I do is I go from the color there that I added, then I go back to the other color and blend the edge. And so I have used here Dusty Concord, Seedless Preserves, Chip Sapphire, Faded Jeans, and Black Soot to get that really cool kind of alien night sky. I just love how it looks with that black cardstock layered over top. Now I want to create some hills for my little scenes. So I have cut some cardstock to 2 inches wide, and you'll see that that's going to layer behind these little windows perfectly because I want the hill to kind of be behind them. So I'm going to use one of my stitched hillside borders and then die cut that 2-inch wide piece of cardstock. Then I'm going to take the cardstock and layer it behind and decide how tall I want my hill. I'll make a little tick mark, and then when I die cut it, I'm just going to add about 1/8 of an inch past that tick mark so that way I'll be able to layer it behind. Then I'll repeat the same idea. So I'll die cut another hill, kind of decide how tall I want to be, make a little tick mark, cut it about 1/8 of an inch past that tick mark, and then keep repeating that. So I'll end up with 4 hills that are going to be able to layer behind my cute little scenes. Next, we're going to work with that alien spaceship with the window cut out of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my cute little alien to it. And then I want to add vellum behind that so that it looks like there's glass, because vellum kind of has that glass look to it. So what I'm going to do is trace it with my pencil, and then I'm going to cut along the inside of that line, just kind of eyeballing it, and it'll be close enough. And then we can layer that behind and create this really cool look. So I'm going to add a little liquid glue and then layer that piece that I just kind of freehand cut behind there. And now you get that cool kind of translucent glass look. Next, I'll add a little glue to my beam, and then I can take my finished spaceship and attach it to the beam there, and I think it looks really, really cool. Then I'll add my cute little cake and a flag for my alien. And then next I'm going to add a little bit of glue and I'm going to start layering on those little hills there. And so I'm going to layer those hills behind, and I really want these scenes to look kind of like little comic book windows. And so to get that look, what I'm going to do is make sure that everything kind of layers behind. So it looks like kind of a cutout of a scene. So I really like taking my critters there, my little aliens, and layering them behind those little frame pieces as if they're kind of peeking out from the sides, and I feel like it gives a really, really cool look. I'm continuing on with the bottom part of my card now. So I'm going to take my little hills and layer those on the back, and then once again take my characters and kind of have them poking out from the side so that it looks like these cute little comic book windows. And now I'll take that whole little beam there and layer that as well. Now I'm going to take my whole thing and put it onto that ink blended sky, and this is when it really just comes alive. It's like, oh, that looks so cool. So next up, I'm going to stamp my happy birthday sentiment in some black licorice ink, and then I'm going to go ahead and add glue to the back of everything and then layer that on top of my panel. Once I have all of that done, I'm going to kind of press it down. I put a piece of cardstock on top to help so that everything glues down really, really well. Then next, I'm going to take a little sparkle silver pen, and I'm just doing tiny little dots all around to create these cool stars in the night sky. So it's just a little silver gel pen, and it looks really, really cool. I'm going to use that same speech bubble as before, die cut it from some white cardstock, and stamp the "Take Us to Your Cake" sentiment, and then kind of layer that behind. And I feel like that speech bubble really helps that kind of comic book style for these cute little windows. Next, I'm creating a card base at 5.5 by 4.25, and I can layer my whole scene on top. And now you can see just how cute this is, and those little stars just add so much. You can see the beautiful sparkle that they have, and I think this card would make anybody smile. Next, we're going to get interactive with this set, and we're going to create a pull tab slider that lets the aliens abduct this cake. And you'll see that the cake is going to hide right behind that spaceship, and it's so cool. We're going to do some partial die cutting and some other cool stuff. But first thing I want to do is create a galaxy background because this set is just asking for a galaxy background. So you'll see there I have some water and some paintbrushes, and I have some watercolor paints. And then I'm going to take some blue painter's tape and I'm going to tape down a piece of watercolor cardstock to a clipboard here to just kind of hold it in place for me as I start to create my little blobs here. So I'm going to add some water onto my paintbrush, pick up some color, and then create these blobs all over it. And I'm not being particular about it. You'll see that sometimes I add more water, sometimes I add less, and so the color's lighter or darker. And then I'm going to add in other colors. So purples, pinks, blues, turquoises, and I'm just layering it and making it look kind of as messy as possible. And this is about the time where I start to get panicked, thinking that it doesn't quite look right. But then I'm going to dry it and then add some black on top. And you'll see the black is like a complete mess on top, like the messier the better. Then I went in with some more black and then some more turquoise and more purple because I wanted just a little bit more color on there. And so you can see how cool it looks when you layer it, but it still kind of looks like a mess. You can see I dried it. It's all done. We're going to peel it off, and this is the magic. So this is some Copic opaque white, but white acrylic paint would work. I'm going to take an old toothbrush and dip it into that paint and then flick the edge of the toothbrush so that I get all these tiny little splatters. And you can see just how cool that's looking. So then I'll go and I'll dip it in the paint again. And then I'm also going to tap the paintbrush around to get larger spots with paint on it. You can see that just by adding those splatters, all of a sudden that kind of hot mess of watercolor looks really, really cool. And I have so much fun making these. I think they're just absolutely just relaxing and fun to make. So I'm dabbing a little bit more paint on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and let everything dry. And you'll see that I created a pretty big piece so that way I could die cut two with my largest outside in stitched rectangle. So I have one to use for today and one to use for another card. Here I'm stamping that beam in Versamark ink on some vellum, and I'm going to heat emboss it with some white heat embossing powder. And that vellum is going to make it look like kind of a spooky beam coming down from the alien spaceship. So you'll see as I heat it up, it gets that shiny, bright white look, and then I'll be able to use the coordinating dies to die cut that. Then I'm going to take some narwhal cardstock and I'm going to die cut that with that same stitched rectangle. And then I'm going to use one of my stitched hillside borders to die cut a hill, and that's going to kind of be the planet that they're sitting on. Next, I am going to white heat emboss the "Take Us to Your Cake" sentiment onto my little planet there, and then I'll be able to add that to my scene. Next, I need to adhere down my vellum beam. And to hide my adhesive, what I'm going to do is put my glue in the areas where I know I'm going to have die cuts covering it later. So I'm going to have the aliens in the corners and the spaceship up top. So that's where I'm adding my glue, and then I'm going to add it to my scene. Now it's time to cut our track. And I've got the shortest slide on over track, but you're going to see as I layer my spaceship that it's actually a bit too tall because I want that track to end behind the alien so that cake can kind of hide up there. So I've put a little post-it note tape to mark how tall I want that track to be, and then I'm going to use more post-it note tape to hold that track in place. Now, to partially die cut this track, what I need to do is layer my plates so that part of the die extends past the plates so that it won't cut. So you'll see I've layered that plate there right in line with that post-it note tape. Then I'm going to remove that tape and use some more Post-it note tape to hold my entire piece to my cutting plate so that it doesn't shift since I have it in the perfect placement. So you'll see I'm going to add that tape, and then once it's in the perfect placement, I can take my other plate and put it on top. I'm going to run it through my die cut machine, and only the parts of where the plates are is what's going to cut from that die. So you'll see there that the die is only partially cut, so I just need to connect the top with my X-Acto knife, and now I have a short track that's the perfect height for my pull tab slider. I'm creating my pull tab by cutting a 1-inch wide piece of black licorice cardstock. I've also created a card base at 5.5 by 4.25 out of that same black cardstock. Now, as you can see, as that black cardstock peeks through, it doesn't really have the look of the vellum over the galaxy sky. But I didn't want to create an entire other galaxy sky. So what I decided to do was take my foam ink dauber and some Yeti ink, which is white pigment ink, and then take my white gel pen and create kind of a smattering of stars. And when you layer that behind, it totally blends in. It's really a nice, quick, and easy way to get that look. Now remember how that cake has to hide behind the spaceship? We need to give that spaceship some height to be able to do that. So we're going to do that by doubling up our foam squares. So I'm putting one on top of the other, and then I'm laying those foam squares on the outside edges of the spaceship and on the top of the alien's head so that they're not in the way of the slider track, but I still have a ton of height. Then I'm going to take my pull tab piece and layer that behind my slider track. And I'm going to take one layer of foam adhesive and add that to the very bottom of my slider track. I can then attach my cake to the bottom of that tab piece, and you'll see that that piece of foam tape is guiding that cake in that track, and it's going to hide right behind our spaceship since we have that doubled up height, and it's such a cool look. Now our cake is tracking really well, but our pull tab piece can move left and right. So we need to guide that pull tab piece, and we're going to do that with some foam tape. So I'm doubling up this foam tape to give it some extra height, and I'm going to layer it right exactly on either side of that pull tab piece to kind of give it a track to move up and down on. Then I'll take some more doubled up foam tape and just fill up the rest of the back of the card. Then I can peel off all of that liner tape and add it to my card base. We need to tell the recipient that there's something interactive about this card. So I'm going to use the Push Here stamp set to stamp Pull Here on the top of that pull tab piece. So you'll see there I'm going to white heat emboss it so that it matches with everything else. Then you're also going to notice that that is a really long pull tab piece. I wasn't sure how long I was going to want to make it, so I left it really long. But now I'm going to mark with my pencil how long it should be and trim that off with my scissors. I'm also going to use my scissors to just slightly round the edges just to give it a little finished look, and I think it just kind of makes it look nice and professional. Now we need the rest of our sentiment, so I'm using the Happy Birthday to You word border die, but I'm going to cut off the to you and then also trim the end of the H there so that it matches the end of the Y, and then I'll add a little glue to my sentiment and layer that on top. And I really like the look of the white die cut on that galaxy sky. It has such a cool pop. I'm going to add the little tiny dot to the I of birthday and then create a card base here that's 5.5 by 4.25 out of some black licorice cardstock so that it all coordinates. And then I can layer that on top. And the card is done. And this card makes me smile so much. I was getting so excited doing the voiceover because it's just so cool. And this idea was an idea by Yainea that I asked if I could recreate for the video. And it's really so much fun. You have to make one of these. It's just awesome. I loved how that doubled up foam kind of created the pocket for that cake to hide behind the spaceship, and the pull tab piece with the foam on either side guides just perfectly. Next up, we have some gorgeous cards by the design team, and I just love this one by Elena. That bold black background is just gorgeous. Shari created a little terrarium jar with the aliens, and it just makes me smile. This would just cheer anybody up. I love this card by Jess. I love all of that metallic look and that really cool galaxy sky in the background that she created. And speaking of galaxy skies, I love this one by Letitia. Those bright blue and turquoises are just gorgeous together. This card by Lizzie is just adorable. I love how sparkly it is and how she cut her words out of those little banners. I think it looks so fun. And then this background by Nicole. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to learn how she did that. I love this card by Lynette. The rainbow is so cool with those cutout stars. It just makes me smile to see them peeking out from behind. And then I love this peekaboo backdrop card by Melissa. It's just so happy, and I love the pastels with the aliens. Jen created a really cool pivot pop-up using this set, and I just love it. It's perfect for pivot pop-ups. And then here's the card by Audrey that inspired me to make one just like it. That rainbow sky is just way too cool. Then here, this card by Elise is awesome. I love her stars and that cool background that she created there. Oh, just beautiful. And then here's the card by Yanea that inspired me to create the pull tab today. So much fun. And then Kristen abducted a cow from Hey There with the set, which I think is just too funny. It just makes me smile. And then this pivot pop-up by Audrey is amazing. Kind of a plain and simple front, and then the inside is just wow. So I cannot wait to see your Beam Me Up cards. You guys have to share them with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!